Okay, IB psychology students, this is the development option. The first topic is developing as a learner, and the first piece of content that we're looking at here and theories and studies of brain development. Okay, so imagine you are a newborn baby, goo goo gaga, etc. We were all one of these once, but we can't really remember what it was like. So, the thing about when babies are born is they're not born as these little blobs. They are born as creatures who are hardwired to respond to the environment. Babies are ready to take in whatever the world can throw at them. So I'll just pause here and I'll let you read this PowerPoint slide. Right, well, moving on to the next slide now. Right, so have a think about what all of the stimuli that we're talking about might consist of. What are babies surrounded by when they are born? Think about all of the different sensory stimulation experiences that they are going to get as a newborn baby. That is, remember, it's going to be completely new to them because they haven't experienced anything yet. So maybe pause the video here and write down your ideas. Okay, and at this point, again, pause the video, find out what neural pruning and neural branching are. A neural pruning particularly is relevant for the biological approach. It's a key term relevant to paper 1 section A. Right, okay, so obviously if we were doing this in class, we would do hands on heads, hands on shoulders. You can still do it in the privacy of your own room if you want to. So which of these statements do you think are true and which do you think are false? So there they are, all those statements. Based on what you've read about, neural pruning and neural branching, think about whether these statements are true or false. Oh, actually, I'll go back and I'll actually do it with you. I thought the answers were coming up, but they're not. So the first statement is false. It's got nothing to do with the brain being pruned like a rose bush might be pruned. Most neural pruning occurs in childhood. Well, it occurs at a great rate in childhood, but it doesn't mean that it stops after childhood. So yeah, it is true that most of it occurs in childhood, but it does keep on going. But obviously, the older you get, the less likely your brain is to carry out branching and pruning. Neural pruning is the brain cleaning out the parts it no longer needs. Yes, that is true. Pruning means a cutting away of. So once an old neural network is not needed anymore, out it goes. Neural branching is possible even in children with special needs. If you have a brain, pretty much everybody has the capacity to develop new networks in that brain. Neural branching doesn't happen very much in babies and children and adults really who are understimulated. Branching occurs because of stimulating the brain through a variety of different ways. The next one about a lovely image here of a sweaty workout at the gym, that's true as well. You know, your brain is like a muscle. It will develop, it will get more complex. It won't get any bigger, it won't burst out of your head. But yeah, that's true as well. And neural branching just keeps on happening. Well, this is one of those things that's very difficult to know. Not as much as when a person is younger. And with conditions such as Alzheimer's and dementia, no, it won't really. That's when the brain is kind of degrading. So basically, use it or lose it. Whatever you've got now, and the younger you are, the better to strengthen those connections. But the older you get, the less likely it is that branching will happen. So there are two descriptions of neural pruning and neural branching. So just have a read of them, make sure that you understand them. So there is a video here. Obviously you can pause the video, pause this PowerPoint and watch the video and think about how it links to neural pruning and neural branching. Okay, this is a table of windows of opportunity. A window of opportunity is a limited time frame in which something can happen. These are all skills, some of them more basic, some a bit more complex, that human beings should develop. A normal human brain will develop all of these skills. Here are the windows of opportunity down here. Now, yes, there are supposed to be 2 of these, birth to 3 years, because they fit into 2 separate categories. You decide which of these fit into these slots here. So pause the presentation here and have a go yourself before I tell you what the answer is. So just pause the presentation here. Right, so I'll have to come out of the full screen to show you this. And you can see here, if these were your answers, then well done, you got it right. So you will see what's really interesting. Motor skills are the first skills to develop, and they develop before birth. I mean, if you've ever seen footage of a baby in the womb, it doesn't just float around. Babies don't just they're not like some kind of like an octopus that just kind of, not an octopus, what do I mean? A jellyfish that just kind of blobs around. You will see babies moving their arms, their fingers. Sometimes you'll see a baby sucking their thumb in the womb. So these basic motor skills, which are essential for us to navigate our way around the world, to pick things up, to control what goes into our mouth, what we reach for, how we walk, you can see there's a very wide window of opportunity there from pre-birth to 8 years, because these are basic skills. They don't require a lot of thought. They are automatic. And you will notice how the more complex skills, particularly maths and logic, will start to develop a little bit later than some of the others. But you can see how if a child is robbed of that opportunity to develop that particular skill, the window will close. And this will explain how some children are severely disadvantaged because they haven't had the opportunity, for a variety of reasons, to develop these skills within their window of opportunity. Right, okay, so next slide, here we go. I didn't need to do that. I didn't need to come out of that. It showed you anyway. Oh well, never mind, you get to see it twice. Right, so brain development is clearly linked to cognitive function. That there is a reason that the brain develops gradually. It would be very odd if a newborn baby was born with a fully functioning adult brain. It would be probably too difficult for everybody concerned to cope with that. The brain needs to develop gradually because the child is young and vulnerable and cannot reason, and probably there is a good evolutionary reason for that. Let's have a look. It can be directly linked to the development of higher order cognitive functioning. So newborn babies can't think really very much. They are little bundles of instinct. It's probably that evolutionary need to rely on an adult to make sure that the baby is going to be looked after. A baby can't answer back or argue with you or annoy you because of its irritating ways of talking or whatever. It might annoy you because it screams a lot, but a baby stimulates in adults caregiving because the baby is helpless, and that's a really important function when we look at attachment. So, babies need to attach to an adult who can look after them. So we know already from our work in year 1 that the prefrontal cortex develops last in humans, because that is the part of the brain which is the more adult, decision-making, logical, kind of that part of the brain that shows that you have maturity. So there's no point in that developing first. The baby needs the areas of the brain to develop first that are going to help that baby just to stay alive. So if you want to, you can pause it here and just read through this slide. So this is our first study for developing as a learner and brain development, Gay et al. It's also one you can use on paper 1, section A, if the question is about neural pruning. All you would do on paper 1, section A is explain what neural pruning is, then apply the study. So this is a really good one for that. So you can find Gay et al. On Teams. In fact, have I put it on there? No, you can find Gay et al. On Teams in our Psychology Sorted textbook, or you can find it in the Core Companion. It's up to you which one you use. It's probably, if you look on Teams under textbooks, and we'll find that together now. So work in pairs, or if you are working from home, you can work on your own and just apply these evaluation questions to this study. And then what we will do is we will feed back on that. Okay, so bearing in mind what we've covered so far, what do you think the impact of abuse or neglect might be on brain development? And if you are impacting brain development, ultimately you are impacting cognitive development. So think about what abuse tends to be quite an active process. So what types of abuse are there? I mean, I know this is a really horrible topic, but it's one that we do have to look at in this for this particular area of the course. Neglect is a more passive, indirect type of abuse. They're both abuse. If you neglect a child, you are abusing that child, but it's in a different sort of way. So have a think about what they might be. And here is a link for you to go to, a YouTube link. So you can pause this PowerPoint presentation here and you can now watch that. I'll let you do that now. And here is a rather depressing and horrible but quite shocking depiction of the impact of neglect on young children. Now you'll see these are MRI scans. You'll see on the left, this is a normal healthy brain of a 3-year-old child who has been nurtured by their parents. They've had their parents, I mean, it doesn't even have to be 2 parents, it could be 1 parent, but they've had an adult, at least one adult, speak to them and speak to them nicely and feed them properly and give them a nice warm place to sleep. It's not about having a lot of money. You can have no money at all, but you can still not neglect your child. You can still love your child. That's what children need. You know, after they've got basic food, water, oxygen, they need love and nurture. And a child who has been paid attention to, they haven't been shouted at, they haven't been ignored. I mean, that's what really this is. This is the signs of a child who's been ignored. No one has spoken to them very much or touched them in a loving way or, you know, given them that stimulation that they need. And you can see how horrible it is. This poor child here has kind of large gaps in their cortex. The outside of their cortex looks a little bit it looks like almost like it's cracked and dried, and this is because the brain just hasn't been nurtured. It hasn't been almost watered like a plant should be watered. So you can see the size, it's smaller than a normal brain. So children who experience abuse or neglect are at a disadvantage from an early age. So this is a direct biological effect of neglect on the brain. And there we can see, I don't know if is that the same, oh that's the same video, yeah. This is just a new slide and you can see these were Romanian orphans, the children here on the right. They had severe sensory deprivation. That means they didn't see, hear or feel a range of stimuli that could have made their brain, you know, light up and start to grow. Little babies, actually, their brain grows when somebody touches them in a loving way. When if a parent or anybody just strokes their bare skin, or just talks to them. You know, even though babies can't see very far when they're very little, they know when somebody is talking to them and looking at them. They will move towards the sound. If it's, you know, particularly if it's the voice of the mother who they've heard in the womb. Now, obviously, these Romanian orphans were abandoned, a lot of them abandoned at birth or as very, very young babies or children. So they just didn't have that. And they've actually got, you can see these are holes in their brain. It's a very, very tragic thing that you can see there. And you can see here, these are PET scans. You know, the PET scans are scans of the brain which trace radioactive kind of metabolism of glucose in the brain. And the more red or orange or yellow the areas, the more active the brain is. And you can see here on a healthy brain, there's a lot of activity where you would expect it to be for information processing, whereas with the abused child there is very little. So children who are abused or neglected are at a biological disadvantage, as well as all the other horrible things that abuse and neglect brings. I'm sorry this is such a depressing topic, but I think it's through studying and understanding these topics that you can actually start to help these children. You know, science can actually put in interventions and highlight things and hopefully help a lot of children. So this study is DeBellis et al. Again, it's in the Core Companion. It is depressing, but let's see it as a way of learning about how we might, use psychology as an intervention and to help children in this situation. And these are some possible exam questions. Oh yeah, sorry, this activity here was to come up with another critical thinking point. And these are possible exam questions that you may be asked about this topic. Okay, so that's it for brain development. Our next topic is cognitive development.